Hey everybody, I'm making this video because I've been requested to do so by a few, not just agents, but also as I'm speaking with some sellers who have judgments. They're wondering how judgments get paid for whenever there's a short sale that's done. Now, remember that this is applicable for short sales for either vacant houses or for houses that are occupied right now. And I just want to go over this process, okay? So, first thing that I want to do is I want to introduce myself. So, I am Robert Savori, and let me get a picture of me. Okay, hold on. Oops, that's a picture of my family right there. And this is a picture of me right here. Well, this is my business card. So as you can see, I'm not your, just a regular person. I am a licensed real estate agent here in New Jersey. I have to take credit, and I've been a licensed real estate agent here in New Jersey since 2005. I work over at United Real Estate Agency. That is where my license is hung. But my team and I, we have our satellite office over at 480 McBride Avenue in Paterson, New Jersey. Very convenient location, especially if you're on Route 80. I also do work with Joshua Santillan, and this is his business card right over here. Okay, so just in case you get a phone call from me or from Joshua, just please remember that both he and I work together, and whatever he does, I know everything about, and vice versa. Okay, so the same, like whatever service that I can give to, to you as a seller, Josh is going to do the same thing as well. And also, Lena over here, well, Oscar Lena works with us as well. Now, we're all licensed agents with United Real Estate Agency, and let's begin the video. And I think later on they may even say hi in the video, right, guys?
Right.
Okay, all right. So, okay, so regarding judgments, okay, so um, this is an example over here of a short sale that I did several years back where the owner of this house lived in the Bronx. And I reached out to him because he had a vacant house in Bogota, New Jersey. All right, now he had abandoned the house, quote unquote, abandoned the house. Maybe about 3 or 4 years before that, he was advised by his attorney. I don't know who the attorney was. It doesn't matter at this point who the attorney was. But it wasn't the best advice in the world because when the owner left the property, nothing was happening with the property. I mean, the foreclosure still hadn't taken place, and he was still the owner. And thankfully, nothing bad had happened to the house, so he wasn't liable for anything that could have. Well, he was liable for something that could have happened, but nothing happened, and everything was good. Now, when I reached out to him, I didn't know this, but he had some judgments against himself. All right, and this is the thing: whenever there's a judgment that's filed with the New Jersey Upper Court, it's not. It doesn't only just go against the individual person whose name would have been over here. So let's just call it. See, this is a box for the name of the seller. Let's just call that person John. All right. It also goes against any property that John or the owner would owns. Okay, so this was still his property. Legally, it was still his. And he had four judgments, and we're going to go over those four judgments pretty soon. So, John signed the documents to sell the house. He had no idea that the house still belonged to him. He thought that the house, because it was resecured by the bank many years before that, that the house was already foreclosed and belonged to the bank. But I showed him that it still belonged to him. We checked the tax records and several other things as well. And he agreed to sell the property. It didn't cost him anything. It wasn't going to cost him anything because it's a short sale. So he just said, "Hey, let's just move forward with this and get this property out of my life once and for all." Now, when I always begin any type of a sale, when I represent a seller, I always do what's called a preliminary title search. Now, the reason why I do this is because I want to know everything that's going on with this property. I want to know how many mortgages there are. Sometimes I meet owners who forget that there's a second mortgage on there, but there is a second mortgage on there. Sometimes there's a small tax lien, even if it's a sewer tax lien, which is usually like a few $100s, maybe like a few $1,000s, and I want to make sure that that's all paid for. Now, because this is a short sale, and I find out if there's any judgments or whatever mortgages there are on there, I can include that in the short sale package so that the bank will pay for it, right? Which would be great, okay? So that we could get clear title. Now, let's move forward with this. Um, with the judgment. So, John over here, after he signed the documents, I went back to the office. We checked preliminary title. What came up was that he had these four judgments. If you could see here, my cursor is circling the judgments. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay. So these judgments, as you can see, they total a, a little over $38,000, and that was what the judgment indicated, right? So, judgments could include like state tax liens, IRS tax liens, child support. I mean, I have like a little bit of a tangent, but I helped out an owner on Mill Street here in Patterson. He had about maybe $40,000 of child support that he owed. When I found out about that, he was more motivated to do the short sale on the house because he could utilize this property now to, to pay for his child support. All right, and that's what we did. All right, and especially because it was vacant, he didn't care. He already vacated from the house. He didn't have to move anywhere. He was living somewhere else in Patterson, and he was like, "All right, well, I can utilize this house to pay for some of my bills. Well, a lot of my bills, and that's what he did." So with this particular house over here in Pagoda, as you can see, I'm circling these judgments. There's four judgments that he has, totaling for a little under $40,000. Now, this particular owner, and I'm remembering this now as I'm speaking, John, he was not able to even open up a bank account. I mean, he could have, but these judgments, because they're court ordered, the money would have been withdrawn from his bank account. He did have his wages garnished, so I think it was like 10 or 15% of what he was making was going towards paying off these judgments. Okay, so this was a great opportunity for him. When I told him that I found out that there were judgments here that were against him, and I told him what I can do to remove them, he was even more motivated to sell the property. And why wouldn't he, right? Like he's making these weekly payments, from deductions from his paycheck. You know, how about just getting rid of all of it? Because who knows how much longer he would have needed to pay these judgments for on a weekly basis. Okay, so over here, this is a copy of the HUD one that I utilized when I did this. This is a short sale, so this is what I submitted to the bank. All right, and I let the bank know that the seller had judgments. I tried to get the bank to pay for these judgments and include it over here on the seller's side of the HUD one, but they denied it. So what I needed to do was I now had to disclose in the MLS that the buyer, whoever was interested in this house, needed to pay for this. Okay, so the bank went out to the property. They said that the houses were $200,000, and this house was a mess inside. I mean, it had been vacant. There was mold growth. I mean, it was just a mess inside. And the bank said, "Look, put the house on the market for 200,000." That's what I did. But in the MLS report, I also put in there that whoever's going to buy this house is also responsible to pay for these judgments at the day of the closing. Okay. The reason why I did this is because I didn't want any surprises to come up at the day of the closing. And I know that this is what many agents, even attorneys, do. That once they go into contract, they don't do title immediately. All right. I mean, this is what we do even before we go into contract. All right. When the seller signs the listing agreement, first thing I do is preliminary title. I want to know what I'm dealing with over here, and thankfully I did, because imagine if I start the short sale, this house is approved at $200,000, and somebody puts in an offer, it gets accepted, all right, and I mean the house is pre-approved by the bank, short sale for $200,000. The buyer puts in an offer, gets accepted, and then the buyer does title, and it usually happens like a week and a half, 2 weeks before the closing. Especially with this deal. This deal was a cash deal, and there's $38,000 that's owed. I mean, this is a deal killer. All right, why would I want to deal with that? Like I don't want to do that. So I have to do everything that I can to prevent this. Okay, prevent a problem. Instead of fixing the problem, I rather prevent a problem. So what happened was that the buyer, the house is on the market. There were agents who went over there, and we got an offer with an addendum in the contract that said that the buyer is aware of these judgments and the buyer would be okay with paying these judgments, which was good. This is exactly what we wanted, and the seller was ecstatic, was happy. All right, the buyer too. The buyer got I guess a good deal for himself, and he was okay with paying these judgments. Now, I just wanted to also let you know that with these judgments, unfortunately, I was not able to settle any of them for less. That's not a reflection of me. I have settled many other judgments before. I mean, maybe like this $22,000 instead of paying the entire amount. Sometimes I'd be able to settle for like 10,000, 5,000, maybe even 15,000. But just coincidentally, with all of these judgments for this one transaction, um, all of these attorneys just wanted what was owed. All right, and but at least I had a buyer who I did not represent. It was being represented by another buyer, by another agent. This buyer was okay with paying everything. But imagine if I was able to get like, each of these judgments, settled for half of the amount. I mean, it would have been an even happier buyer, and the deal would have gotten through as well. All right, so I'm just like letting you know that and I'm going to show you on the actual final alta that was signed. Just going over my notes over here. So we disclosed everything in the MLS. That's good. I tried settling the judgments. Seller, yeah. I also mentioned that the seller was not able to open up a bank account, and this video is made specifically for you, the seller. I mean, not the seller, but the owner of this property. Of Joshua or I have reached out to you, just so you know, like if you have any judgments, all right. If you think you may have any this is Joshua right here. If you think you may have any judgments, let's find out, because who knows? Like you may utilize the house that you vacated, a few months ago or a few years ago, or even if you're living in the house right now and you're like, worried about these judgments, you could utilize your property to pay for these judgments. Okay. Um, Let me see. Oh, you know what? The other thing too is I've had even sellers. Well, there was just one who he years ago he had an unpaid fine or violations with the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. And I don't know if you know this, but if you have these fees, right, that you have to pay for, and you don't pay for it, then uh, um, um, the Motor Vehicle Commission, what they do is they file a judgment against you. So it's also against everything that you owe, that you own, but they also revoke your license. So he owed I don't know, it was like a few $1,000s, and he just didn't have the money, so he wasn't able to drive for years. So when I spoke with him about him selling the property, all right, in fact he was one of 3 owners. Okay, so when I told him about these judgments and that they would get paid for, another owner who was super ecstatic and happy, and the day that we closed, there was a check that was made out to the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. It was sent out to them. Once it was processed, he no longer had any fines that he owed. The judgment was this balance was at zero. As soon as he found out, he got his license. He got his license again, and he was able to drive. And I love doing that stuff. Like Josh and I and Lena, like we love helping out people with situations like this. So once again, just give us a call if you think that you may have a judgment. All right, so I'm scrolling down the screen over here, just to let you know that this was the actual alta that was used for the closing. All right, and just like in this in the top HUD one, I don't want to disclose any of the like the owner's name or the buyer's name or anything like that, or like even the property location, just that it was in Bogota, New Jersey. But let me scroll down over here. So this is a copy of the actual alta that we used for the closing. These are some of the closing costs, all right? And so what we have over here, this is the third and last page of the alta where where the buyer and the seller signed. But over here, what I have are the 4 judgments that we saw earlier. Oops, let me go back up. You see these 4 judgments over here, right here. Okay, they were now included. This is the preliminary HUD, okay, which we prepare, and then this is the final ALTA, which is created by the title agency or the closing agent. It could be the attorney as well, with all these numbers included, and what happened was the buyer paid for them. So these are, judgments that were fully paid for, fully discharged at the day of the closing, right? And it was signed by the buyer and the seller and the escrow officer, which is the closing agent. And just like that, this owner of a property who was doing, well, living, with his family in the Bronx, I showed up to his house, and and his life changed, and this is why I do what I do. I really like it, especially in these situations where judgments are paid for. Now, I haven't spoke with him in a while, maybe like in a year, but I do send him my some marketing every now and then, and he reaches out to me, and we talk and this and that, and he's doing a lot better, and I'm happy for that. But yeah, that's I just want to just like let you know that this is what we can do, and this is how we do our short sales. That we always do preliminary title searches first. We have to do it. Like, I want to know what the water, if there's a water bill, right? I want to know if there's a sewer bill. I want to know if there's, especially if it's a vacant house, I want to know if there's a vacant house fee. There's towns and cities that have these vacant houses on the list, and if it's on the list, sometimes there's like $1,000 yearly fee that hasn't been paid for in, like, let's say 4 years, and that's $4,000. I want to know if there's a second or third or fourth mortgage. I mean, I've done short sales where there's, like, I think the most I've ever had was like maybe 4 mortgages, and we've gotten it done, because I just know how to do this, right? So yeah, just give us a call. Let me give you my number once again. Well, here's my info. Okay, so once again, I'm Robert Savori. My phone number is 908-432-2526. Call me or text me anytime. And there's also Joshua Santiano over here at 973-405-1413. Okay? Hopefully you guys will reach out to us, and I'll see you in the next video.